And we start here. South African Revenue Service Commissioner Edward Kieswetter is briefing the media on the impact of coronavirus on revenue collection. SARS' ability to meet its collection targets is expected to be heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Our reporter Barry Bateman is in Pretoria. He's been following that story for us. Let's get an update from him. Barry, so Kieswetter says the arrival of COVID-19 has really made a bad situation worse, hasn't it?
Yeah, quite right, Devon. I mean, you just got to spare a thought for Edward Kieswetter. He's also made the point that today marks, or this week, this period marks a year since he assumed office. And you can imagine the difficult time that when he came in, having to deal with the Tom Moyane era that he had to fix up. He's now sitting with an incredibly difficult time to try and recover tax money. So he gave us a bit of a background, a bit of a look at the scenario that he's facing, or the scene that South Africa was in before the COVID-19 epidemic hit us, and it's not a pretty picture. He was already sitting with a difficult situation, and with the arrival of this epidemic, it's just made it worse. Devon, take a listen to what he had to say here.
We could potentially face a revenue under recovery of up to 285 billion. Now, my job is not to revise the revenue estimate. That the Minister of Finance will do when he announces a budget update. But for us, our day job is the domestic mobilization, the mobilization of domestic resources, and so therefore we point this out as a huge revenue risk. We've just had 1 month, and so from the preliminary assessment of revenue performance, I can share with you the following. That we have had an under-recovery in the first month of 9 billion, which represents a year-on-year decline of 8.8%. The main drivers of this under-recovery are as follows. For pay-as-you-earn, we are down 5.2% compared to the same period prior year. This is made up of just over 65,000 employers who have made payments in April 2019 but have made no payments in the corresponding month of 2020, a tax value of 3.8 billion. There's also just over 87,000 employers who have made payments in April 2019 but have made lower payments in the corresponding month of 2020 with a tax value of 6.1 billion. Stats SA recently reported on liquidations and insolvencies that they have seen an increase of 12.3% for February 2020 compared with the same period last year, with an increase of voluntary applications for liquidations. And in insolvencies, they have seen an increase of 13.9% for January this year compared to last year. According to our own directives that we have finalized, we can report that we have seen an increase of 1,622 employees retrenched during April this year compared to last year, which is an increase of 9%. The total number of retrenchments in April is just over 20,000.
Yes, Barry. So, I mean, he's given us the number there, 285 billion rand short of the estimate given to us in February in that budget. And there's a double whammy here, isn't there? Because you have less economic activity, dwindling tax base, and the return of businesses being able to pay their taxes just continues to shrink if they are affected by this COVID-19 and the way it goes.
And add to that, Devon, the uncertainty. So they made a decision, a determination, a re-evaluation, or the ability to collect that tax of an under-collection of that 285 billion rand. But you don't know when this economically destructive lockdown is going to end. So it's also that added to it. So the estimates could be made on a certain amount or on certain figures that are being put forward. And this is what Edward Kieswetter explains, that they're continually re-evaluating the situation. So you're quite right. You've got diminished economic activity. You spoke about the people who, or the businesses, on the lower payments of the pay-as-you-earn compared to the same period last year, the significant numbers there. But that other side, the dwindling tax base, so you've got companies that are laying off people, you've got retrenchments, and this is the concern that Kieswetter raised as well. this is not something that's just going to bounce back after the lockdown is lifted. You don't just create the jobs. Those businesses that are shut down, there's no indication when they will actually be able to recover, when you will see new businesses and the ability to re-employ people. So those 7 million more people who are going to be added to the unemployment queue, or the 7 million total, there's no indication when they will be in a position to be able to pay taxes and contribute in that capacity towards the state. So a very difficult position for the taxman, but certainly not made any easier by the uncertainty of the situation.
Barry, before I let you go, I see we've got a number to the excise duties that were lost as a result of the alcohol and cigarette ban there. He puts it at 1.7 billion rand just for April. And I see the SARS Commissioner once again saying that, look, it's fertile ground for illicit activity.
It's a serious concern, but I think any thinking person who had looked at the situation would have seen what the unintended consequence of this would have been. So you've got those revenue losses, and that money is going straight into the illicit economy. Edward Kieswetter going into a little bit of detail that there is significant work being done with the authorities, the SAPS in particular. There have been some arrests, there have been some closure of factories where, for example, illicit cigarettes were being produced. No details on the specific of maybe companies or individuals involved. But it's something that many people are seeing anecdotally. You just got to look on social media and you speak to your friends in WhatsApp groups. There are people who continue to smoke and they continue to drink and they're getting it from somewhere and they're not getting it lawfully. So much concern from the SARS Commissioner, and also making the point he did raise these issues. So the question related to did he make any contribution towards the debate about whether it would be good or bad to ban the sale of cigarettes and alcohol, and he said that he would have made his contribution to say what the impact would have been on revenue collection. It's ultimately up to other people to make the decision on whether to accept or impose such a ban.
Barry Bateman, thanks indeed for talking to us from Pretoria.